What is wrong with Pete Alonso right now? We'll talk about it on today's show.
You are Locked On Mets, your daily New York Mets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello to all you amazing Mets fans. You're watching Locked On. That's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm your host, Ryan Finkelstein. If you want to find any of my work, follow me on X at Finkelstein Ryan. You can also find some of my writing at justbaseball.com, where I work as the managing editor. Well, it was a brutal weekend for the Mets in Tampa as they got swept for the first time since the first series this season. There's a couple things that you could like about the Mets up to this point in the season. It's the fact that they went on that great run where they went 12-3. And it's also the fact that even when they were losing series recently, they were at least making sure that they grabbed a game, because that prevents you from really sliding. But when you lose 3 in a row in a series and you get swept, it's just horrible vibes all around. And this was as much of a team loss as you can have a team win. So many places where you can point the blame. First inning, Francisco Lindor gets the Mets on the board with a 2-run homer. So you're sitting ahead. And in every game, the Mets got off to early leads that were immediately erased. Luis Severino actually did hold it for an inning. Bottom of the first inning. Didn't go great for him. He walks the leadoff man, gives up a double, but works his way out of it. Strikes out 3 batters in that inning. And you thought, all right, there's the Sevy that we have come to love early in this season. He's going to be able to get on track and start carving from there. It just didn't work. Second inning, he walks the leadoff man again. Then, to Severino's credit, some bad defense behind him. Brett Beatty, who's been so good at third base. There's a chopper hit to him. He either needed to more aggressively play back on it, or he needed to charge it, which is what he really had to do. Instead, he's caught in between. He lets it eat him up on the backhand and ends up being ruled a double, but could have been an error. It's a ball that he should have at least fielded cleanly, regardless of what would have happened from there. But that allows a run to score on the double. And then on the next play, Beatty makes a diving stop, and he tries to pick off or back pick the runner at second base instead of just going to first base and getting out. And so instead of sitting there with 1 out, a runner on second, it's no outs, runners at first and second. They bunt the runners over, and then Yandy Diaz gets a hit. All of a sudden, the Mets are losing 3-2. So in that inning, you certainly can point to Brett Beatty. But Severino, just too much traffic. Ultimately, you look at the game overall, he did give up a run in the third inning. But to walk 6, give up 4 hits, and only allow 4 runs, especially when you can look at that one inning where Beatty made those plays and think maybe things could have gone a little bit differently. I'm not going to overreact to this start by Severino. Yes, he's got to cut down the walks, but he pitched out of some tough spots. He's not the reason the Mets lost this game. When he left, they had a lead, and they held that lead until the 7th inning. Jorge Lopez, Reed Garrett, Sean Reed-Foley, they all had scoreless innings. Edwin Diaz blows the save, and yes, I am jumping over a big part of that game, and I'm doing it for a purpose, so we'll get to it. But the Mets had their opportunity to somehow escape with a win. They have the ball in their closer's hands with a 5-4 lead in the 9th inning. Should have been open and shut case. All right, you're going to at least get one. As ugly as the game was, you're going to get one. Edwin Diaz easily gets through the first 2 batters. Strikeout, pop out. He's got to face Randy Arozarena. He throws nothing but sliders to him. And the last one he throws, he was trying to locate, or he should have been looking low and away. Instead, it's low and in. Arozarena had 7, or I think that was the 7th pitch of the at-bat. He had so many sliders to try to time it up. And sure enough, he hits a home run. Why not go fastball there? Does he not trust his fastball? It is something to monitor because he was really slider heavy. Although I think we've seen in the past, Edwin Diaz can fall in love with his slider, and rightfully so. It's a great pitch. I personally think that's what happened more than him not wanting to go to the fastball. I think he was throwing in the bullpen. It was nasty. So I'm just going to throw sliders today because they're not going to be able to touch it. Not wanting to throw a fastball to a fastball hitter, I get it. But it's just a brutal moment for the Mets to see your closer in that spot give up that home run. Granted, it's going to happen. Adam Ottavino blew one the night before. Was it the night before? Yeah, it was the Christian Scott game, right? The bullpen can't do it all themselves. And the reason why I went out of order with this, and we'll talk about the extra inning right now, the Mets get a run on an error. Brandon Nimmo beats out a ground ball. Bader comes around to score. Whatever. They have a lead. Jake Diekman comes on. He walks the leadoff man. A ball hit to Harrison Bader where he shouldn't have laid out for it, because if he at least plays it back, the one run's going to score, but the game would have prolonged. Instead, he lays out. It gets past him. Game over. If he actually caught it, it still would have been a tie game. So he shouldn't have laid out. It was a bad call on his part. And I get being frustrated at him. I get being frustrated at Edwin Diaz. And the reason why I've sort of condensed all of that stuff that you can be frustrated with is because this game never should have got to that point. This lineup, yes, they put up 6 runs, whatever. They should have had double digits in this game without a doubt. And Pete Alonso was brutal. Third inning, the Mets load the bases with nobody out when it's a 3-2 game. Francisco Lindor hits a screaming line drive right up the middle, over 105 miles per hour off the bat, just right into the shortstop's glove. Brandon Nimmo, nice piece of base running to get back on that play. But it's not Lindor's fault. He should have been 3 for 6 in this game. Pete Alonso comes up, swings at a slider off the plate, falls behind 0-1. Looks at a ball that evens up the count. Then he swings at a slider low and away for strike 2, and then he gets a fastball up and away that he pops up. So one opportunity, bases loaded, where Alonso does nothing. DJ Stewart works a tough walk. That ties the game. Then Jeff McNeil, another guy you can have gripes with right now, he strikes out on some horrible swings on sliders nowhere near the zone. So that was maybe the worst at bat of the game by Jeff McNeil, where all you needed was a base hit to take a couple of runs in, and all of a sudden the pressure would have been off. But no, the Mets go from bases loaded, nobody out, and they only score 1 on a walk. Fourth inning, the Mets get a gift error by Jose Siri in the outfield. Then 3 consecutive hits, Omar Narvaez and Brandon Nimmo each drive in a run. So all of a sudden, the Mets end up with a 5-4 lead. That's the lead that held for most of the game. You had runners on first and second, though. Nobody out. Starling Marte flies out. Francisco Lindor singles to load the bases. Pete Alonso gets a shot at redemption. Base hit. You completely absolve yourself of the prior inning. First pitch, fastball or sinker, right down the middle. Looks at it. Doesn't get the bat off his shoulder. Then he keeps the bat on his shoulder and ends up in a hitter's count, 2-1. He swings at a sinker, low and in, rolls it over for an inning-ending double play. That was a very well-executed pitch. I will grant you that. But Pete Alonso has to either get a barrel on that or wait for a better pitch. But you got to do anything but what he did. And look, again, it's a sinker, low and in that was dotted. It was a good pitch. But Alonso's approach at the plate just has not been there lately. And, he had the best pitch to hit, the first pitch of that at bat. A pitch right down the middle that he could have destroyed, but he was taken all the way. The Mets loaded the bases in the 8th inning, came up empty. Got 2 on in the 9th, came up empty. They were 4 for 16 with runners in scoring position. They left 13 runners on base. Is that all Pete Alonso's fault? No. There was a lot of guys that struggled when it came to hitting with runners in scoring position. But Pete Alonso, since his debut, has been the best run producer in all of baseball. You expect him to get runs in. And I think the difference between what we see from Pete this year, or even last year, to the guy that drove in 130 in 2022, is that guy would shorten up at times and look for base hits. And look to just get a couple across or get the sac fly. And it felt like all of those spots. And this year, it's not happening. I want to explore why it's not happening. What is wrong with Pete Alonso? We'll get to that in just a minute. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by LinkedIn. Are you struggling to close deals? B2B selling is tougher than ever, and that's why I want to tell you about LinkedIn Sales Navigator. LinkedIn Sales Navigator is a sales intelligence platform that helps professionals effectively prospect and engage high-value customers to drive higher revenue and increase sales performance. Sales Navigator helps you target the right buyers and surface key signals and shows you hidden allies so you can find those buyers that are most likely to convert. Fueled by LinkedIn's 1 billion member platform, Sales Navigator gives you the most up-to-date first-party data, enabling you to unlock conversations with the people that matter. Right now, you can try LinkedIn Sales Navigator and get a 60-day free trial at linkedin.com/lockedon. That is linkedin.com/lockedon for a 60-day free trial. Let LinkedIn Sales Navigator help you sell like a superstar today. Just go to linkedin.com/lockedon and get started. Today's episode is also brought to you by my favorite mobile app, the hit game Monopoly Go. I'm a competitive person, and my competitive side loves Monopoly Go. It's been downloaded over 150 million times, and it's a great twist on your classic Monopoly, where you play on not one, but hundreds of Monopoly boards in crazy locations, building up amazing cities that bring you big money. You can still charge your rent on your iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but you also have the ability to rob vaults of your friends. You can take their riches for yourself. You can look at leaderboards that'll show you who is the biggest Monopoly tycoon. But it's not just about the competitive side. You can also team up with friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to earn huge rewards. So get in the game and join your friends. Download Monopoly Go now free on the App Store or Google Play. So what is wrong with Pete Alonso? There's a lot of different areas we can look, but one of the things that I wanted to pull up was his zone charts, because it just shows you how pitchers attack Pete. And this is standard throughout his career, but it's maybe a little more pronounced this year. If you're watching on YouTube, you can see the graphic here. Total pitches that Alonso has seen, and this is before today's game. 133 low and away outside of the zone, those sliders away. Now, the second most that he's seen in any zone is up and away at 57%. No one wants to come in on Pete Alonso, okay? So that makes sense, but then here's how he does on it. The whiff percentage on those pitches low and away, 49%. So if he's swinging, he's half the time swinging through it. If it's up and in, he's crushing the baseball. So that just shows you the difference. Then you look at strikeouts by zone. 11 of his 30 strikeouts going into the game today were low and away, those sliders that he's chasing, or the sweepers, whatever it is. Now, he struck out once in the game today. I looked at it. It was a pitch low and away, sure enough. I think this one was actually in the zone, though, not out of the zone, which is where he's been the most vulnerable. Then you look at swings by zone. He's swinging more in that zone than anywhere else. He just can't help himself. Now, this has been the issue with Alonso throughout his entire career. This is always the weak spot in his game. That's why pitchers know the book on him. That's where they attack. Here's the thing. If they miss and that pitch bleeds a little bit more inside, that's where Alonso does his damage. But then I tried to look at all the different rate stats, right? So infield fly ball rate, at a career worst, 15.2%. Popped up a couple of times today. That's only going to climb. Pull percent, it's down 5%. Center percentage, so hitting the ball up the middle, down 6.5%. Oppo percentage up 13%. So he isn't driving the baseball. He's not getting around on. He's not pulling the ball. He's not hitting it up the middle. He's weakly rolling over his stuff to the right. He's also got some hits where he's found a hole on the right side where it's vacated and he hits a ground ball that way, which is fine to get you going, but he's not comfortable in the box. Soft contact is slightly up, medium's up, hard hit percentage way down this year. Whiff percentage, not much different. Chase percentage, ultimately not much different. Strikeout rate, walk rates are consistent. He's getting under the ball more. Solid contact down, barrel percentage clearly down. So then what I wanted to figure out, all right, where is he screwing up? Where is it in the zone? Is it out of the zone? What's been the issue? Gary Cohen today talked about his chasing and how that's an issue. But when I look at the chase rate, that's pretty comparable to 2022. And then I look at his swing take profile, which essentially assigns a run value to all the different zones. So there's the waste zone, stuff that you should just completely ignore, the pitches that are nowhere close. You have the chase zone. That's where he can get hurt low and away, but ultimately it is those pitches that are outside of the zone, but not, completely non-competitive. Then you have the shadow region. That's where you expect a hitter to struggle. Pitches that are on the edges of the strike zone. Well-located pitches. And then you have the heart of the plate. So when Alonso's going good, last year, waste and chase, plus 16, plus 14. His shadow run value was minus 26. Over the heart of the plate, he was plus 16. Okay, so that shows you that he was doing damage where he's supposed to. He wasn't hurting himself. And the shadow region, well-located pitches, yes, he struggled like most hitters will. 2022, over the heart of the plate, plus 12. Shadow region, minus 5, so he wasn't getting hurt even that bad that year. Then Chase, Waze, plus 13, plus 14. So now you look at this year. Plus 6 on the Chase zone, plus 2 on the Waze zone. So as much as Gary could say, he's chasing more, putting himself in bad counts, which he did today, and he has, of course, but that's not where he's struggling. That's not the main reason. Okay, so that's Chase Waze. Shadow, minus 2. Again, you expect to be negative in that department. Pitches over the heart of the plate. Pete Alonso has a run value of minus 6. So there have been pitches that he could hit. And he has not capitalized in those instances. I want to actually pull up one more thing that I didn't grab in my notes here. But first pitch percentage. Let's see if I can find this. His first pitch swing percentage is 24.5% this year. Last year was 24.3%. In 2022, he swung at the first pitch 33.5% of the time. So 1 out of every 3 at-bats, he was swinging at the first pitch. Now, it's more 1 out of every 4 at-bats. It's an interesting change. I'm sure there is, of course, some thought behind it, making sure he sees enough pitches, getting deep into counts. They're trying to get into a hitter's count. But you know what? Sometimes 0-0 is a hitter's count when you're Pete Alonso. And there was that at-bat today where the first pitch he saw was a sinker right down the middle, and he looked at it. He's got to be looking to swing early at times. But really, ultimately, the issue for Pete Alonso is he's just struggling in the zone. He is not barreling up baseballs. He's not driving baseballs in the zone. And you look at the numbers when it comes to pitch breakdown. Last year, he hit 244 against fastballs. This year, 246. But his expected batting average was 271. His expected slug was 585 because he was hitting the ball hard. This year, the whiff percentage, it's the same as last year. The expected batting average is 247. The expected slug is 410. So that just shows you he's not hitting the ball as hard as he used to. Now, you look at off speed, the batting average is bad. It was bad last year. This year it's better, but it's small sample size. Breaking pitches, he's struggling greatly on breaking balls, hitting 143, 214 slug, 13 strikeouts, only 1 home run on a breaking ball. Last year, 14 of his 46 came on breaking balls. But I think the thing is, when Pete Alonso was at his best in 2022, he hit for a high average on pretty much every pitch. Fastball, 265 average. Breaking balls, 264. Off speed, he feasted 339. Is that still in there for Pete Alonso? Was that just a one-year wonder where he hit for some average? Because I talked about this on yesterday's show as well. That's what the Mets need from Pete Alonso. Not to hit 330, but to hit 260. Not 220, or even now it's worse than that. More than seeing Pete Alonso run into 2 home runs, I want to see Pete Alonso have a series in St. Louis where he hits 7 singles in 3 games. And not just ground balls that are eking through. Solid line drives into the outfield. Just spread up the middle, really. Hit those line drives that end up just, he drives them hard at the bat. They get over the infielders. They drop in front of the center fielder on one hop. That's what I want to see. I want to see Alonso being comfortable in the box. And yes, the home runs, of course, those will come and you want to see them. But I don't want to see Pete Alonso just be home run or bust this year. I want to see a more complete hitter. And I do believe that when JD Martinez gets it going, that's going to help, because maybe Pete can draw some walks in instances where they want no part of him, and JD Martinez can make a pay. Maybe the fact that they might be more scared of JD Martinez at times if he's red hot, that might force the issue where a pitcher is more inclined to throw it at Pete. I think at times, as you go back to that pitch chart, right, they're just going to keep hammering sliders low and away. He's got to avoid them. And if they can locate those pitches, he's in trouble. And that might be the issue this year, is that they're locating against him. But Pete Alonso has to figure this out for the Mets to be a successful team. And I could harp on Jeff McNeil, just as bad, if not worse, when it comes to his approach right now in the box. But here's the thing. Jeff McNeil is not going to carry the Mets offense. Pete Alonso can and should. So that's what we got to see. And I think it can come. It's early in the season. I'm not selling my stock in Pete. But it's just worth pointing out that his approach when it comes to his plate discipline, it's not lost, as far as he's not swinging at a ton of horrible pitches. But when he's getting the pitches that he can't handle, the pitches over the heart of the plate, that's where he's coming up short. He's just not impacting the baseball the way Pete Alonso should. When he has a pitch over the heart of the plate, he's not doing damage. He's not driving the baseball. And that has to come around. I expect it to. But the longer it takes, the more that this team could continue to slide. And you already pulled yourself out of a hole once. You need to go into St. Louis here, at least win a series. If not, correct everything you just screwed up on this road trip and find your way to a 500 trip by sweeping the Cardinals. Can the Mets pull that off? We'll do a series preview next here. First, though, today's episode is brought to you by Yahoo Finance. Wouldn't it be great if you could see all of your investment and retirement accounts all in one place? With Yahoo Finance, you can consolidate your views from multiple accounts into one hub and access the expert analysis you need to tend to your entire portfolio with confidence. For more than 25 years, Yahoo Finance has been the brand behind every great investor. Whether you're a seasoned investor or you're like myself, you're new, you're looking for that extra guidance, Yahoo Finance gives you all the tools and data you need in one place. They're the number one financial destination, producing a holistic view of all the financial news cycle, including breaking news, original editorial perspectives, analyst ratings, independent research, customizable charts, and so much more. With a community of over 90 million users each month, their real strength is helping you on your way to financial success. For comprehensive financial news and analysis, visit the brand behind every great investor, yahoofinance.com, the number one financial destination, yahoofinance.com. That's yahoofinance.com. Now, since the Mets last faced the St. Louis Cardinals, they have lost a series to the Tigers. No shame in that. But then they lost a series to the Chicago White Sox over the weekend. So they're showing themselves to be a poor team. They're 15-19 on the season. Granted, I'd said some similar things about the Rays going into this past series as far as a team that had been struggling and also had struggled against the White Sox. So not necessarily the best omen, I guess. Maybe it's the Mets that teams are going to get right on now. But I look at this series and I look at the road ahead beyond it. And I just think this is a series the Mets have to win, if not take all three games. And you don't say half the sweep. That's going a little bit too far. But the reason why I'm putting that amount of importance on this series is you got the Braves coming into town next after having beaten them in Atlanta already. So they're going to really want to go into New York and to prove a point. Then you got the Phillies, who are the hottest team in this division, where you got to face them for 4 games, 2 at home, 2 on the road. Then you got a 3-game respite against the Marlins. And then after that, you go to Cleveland and face a great Guardians team so far this year. And that's a 13-game stretch that takes place in 13 days after the off day on Thursday. So the Mets have to take some games here, because now they're a couple games under 500. You want to go out, win this series, and make this a much better feeling coming off of this road trip. If you lose this series, and let's just say it is, in fact, a 1-5 road trip before you head home, after a bad homestand you just came off of, that's a really tough pill to swallow, and then get yourself up for a series against the Braves. So it's pivotal. And they got Sean Manaea on the mound for game 1 tonight against Kyle Gibson. Gibson, 3.79 ERA in the year. We know Sean Manaea has been a real mixed bag. Hopefully he can turn in his best start since his Mets debut, where he was great for that first outing. But you don't feel entirely confident when he takes the ball right now. So we'll see. We'll see. Gibson's a guy that I feel like the Mets should be able to hit. but he's got a decent ERA this year. So we'll see. We'll see if the lineup can figure things out. Jose Budo versus Miles Michaelis in game 2. Michaelis beat the Mets last time, allowed 2 earned runs in 5 2/3 off of 7 hits. He's not having a great year, though. Again, a guy I feel like the Mets should be able to hit. Jose Budo didn't have the best start against the Cardinals the last time out, but I do have faith when Budo takes them out right now. Finally, it's going to be Jose Quintana versus Sonny Gray. That's going to be a really tough matchup for the Mets. Gray, off to a great start this year. He pitched 6 innings, allowed just 1 run against the Mets last time. Then he went up against the White Sox, 7 scoreless. So that's going to be the toughest game in this series. You want the series won before you face Sonny Gray, ideally, especially because Jose Quintana is coming off a pretty brutal start, but he did go 8 against the Cardinals the last time these two teams met. When you come out on the other side of that off day, it's just interesting to think about the way the rotation is going to line up. Christian Scott probably gets the ball first, then Luis Severino, all these guys pitching on 5 days rest, Sean Manaea. That would be your 3 for your series against the Braves. So I like where the pitching is for that series. Then it's probably Jose Budo, Quintana, Tyler McGill maybe inserted back in, and then Christian Scott. So Scott could, his next couple starts, face the 2 Chief Division rivals. But I'd like to see the Mets with some positive momentum and a lineup that turns the corner. The good news is it does go in ebbs and flows. And that could be all this is. All this stretch of whatever it was, 4 of their last 14 games they've won. They're 4-10. That's coming off the 12-3 stretch. Maybe that's just to counteract that 12-3 run. You put all together, what is that? 16 and math always a strong suit for me. Just kidding. 16 and 13? Am I right about that? Take the 3 losses from the 15 games. Take the 10. Yeah, the 16, 13. If you look at it from that perspective, is that the type of team the Mets are? Slightly above 500? Possibly. I think this is basically a 500 team that can elevate. And the elevation will come from a Scott being added to your rotation. Finally seeing the lineup take off with JD Martinez in the fold. But it's been bad vibes for a couple weeks here. And I'm waiting to see the Mets turn this thing around. Hopefully, the Cardinals are the first indication of a turnaround. And if the Mets can carry that through this next stretch, maybe the timing ends up working out, because if you can pile up some wins against the Braves and the Phillies, we'll all feel a lot better moving forward. Throughout the rest of this week, we're going to have some interesting topics to discuss. At some point, maybe what is going on with Jeff McNeil. Also, can Mark Vientos have a role on this team? Not something that I would have thought to discuss, but the more that this lineup struggles, the more I want to figure out, can you get his bat out there? Because it looked pretty good in the short stint. So we'll be going through all these different topics throughout the week. As always, make sure if you're listening on the audio side, you follow, rate, and review wherever you get your podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that subscribe button, trying to make a push to 9,000 subs. We're very close to being halfway, I believe. So you can get us over to the 8,500 mark. That would be great. I appreciate all of you. Subscribe. If you're going to be a Locked On Mets insider, be part of our texting service, find a link in the episode description or go to subtext.com/LockedOnMets. And now for your second watch today, head over to YouTube to the first ever 24/7 streaming channel that covers everything in the world of sports. Of course, I'm talking about Locked On Sports Today, our local hosts from each team and our league-wide hosts from each league. Find Locked On Sports Today streaming 24/7 on YouTube.